everyone. This is an online recording of one of the workshops that we usually do in person. It's our grant writing and garden design workshop, specifically for Grow to Learn's mini grants that happen twice a year. I'll go into the specifics later on during the presentation, but first we'll go through some background information on Grow to Learn, how to work with us, and then the nitty-gritty of the grant process. So Grow to Learn is a school garden support organization, and our role in this world is to help you build, expand, sustain, etc. school gardens in New York City public and charter schools. And our mission is to help put in a garden in every public school and charter school that wants one in New York City. Grow to Learn is a partnership organization, so we are a few different nonprofits and governmental organizations working together under the umbrella of Grow to Learn. One of our partners is Grow NYC. They're an environmental nonprofit. If you've shopped at many of the farmers markets in New York City, or compost your food scraps, do some recycling education in your schools, those are all different programs of Grow NYC, and greening and gardening, specifically school gardening, is definitely one part of Grow NYC. Our other partner is Green Thumb, the New York City Parks Department Community Gardens branch. They help a lot with the big bulk materials that we give away to schools, like lumber and soil. And our third partner is the DOE Office of School Food, specifically their Garden to Cafe program. If you are interested in getting more fresh foods in your cafeterias, salad bars, or even getting some garden produce into your cafeterias, our staff member, Chef George, with Garden to Cafe, can help educate you on that process and work with your cafeteria staff to get those things realized. So that's Grow to Learn. And the way that we work with schools is it's a few different prongs. I think the biggest thing that we do is give away a lot of stuff, which is always neat to do and fun to hear for schools. We have a lot of giveaways throughout the year, a lot of workshops so that you can learn a new skill and then get those materials that you need to implement that new skill back at your school. Each season we give away seeds, we give away tools, seedlings, benches, rainwater harvesting barrels. There's a lot of stuff that we give away, so definitely keep in touch with us throughout the year to find out how you can access those materials. And then the other big thing that we do is help teachers learn new skills, or help parents learn new skills, to make these programs really well-rounded and sustainable in the long term. So again, we do workshops throughout the season, we have giveaways throughout the season, we do longer multi-day workshops in the spring and in the summer with the DOE STEM Institute. So definitely sign up for a newsletter or go peruse our website and look at what we offer and see how you can get involved and get in contact with us. The other big thing that we do is that we connect a lot of people. So we have a network of over 700 schools. We have partners with a lot of different greening and environmental organizations and educational organizations in the city. So even if we don't have a specific answer for you, or we don't have the resource that you need, more often than not, we know someone who is an expert in that topic, or is doing a tour on raised bed building or something like that. So even if we can't offer you that resource, we can usually connect you to someone who can. And the last thing that we do is we advocate for these spaces. We advocate for them on a school level with your maybe hesitant custodians and administration. but we also advocate for these on a broader citywide and national level, because we really believe in the power that educational garden spaces have for both students and for teachers, and we really think that these are important tools for teachers to use, and for students to really learn and excel in outdoor learning spaces. So yeah, we do a lot of talking about school gardens. We do a lot of advocating for school gardens, and we can help you get this process started within your own school community, if you're having trouble getting people on board. These are just some examples of the stuff that we give away. So again, we have lumber, soil, and compost giveaways. Those are usually associated with workshops throughout the season. So if you see a workshop on our calendar with an L or an S next to it, that means they are lumber and soil eligible. The deliveries of those materials are usually one season off. So if you come to a workshop in the fall, you would get the delivery of those materials in the spring, and vice versa. So there's a little bit of planning ahead with those materials. We also have a seed giveaway each year. We have seedling giveaways throughout the spring. We give away tools. We give away benches. I said that before. Native plants, perennial plants. We have a beneficial insect giveaway each spring as well. So definitely sign up for our newsletter so that you can stay up to date on all these events and take advantage of everything we give away. In addition to the material giveaways that we also have our own labor and time. GTL staff is available to answer questions that you might have, from what is this fungus growing on my zucchini plant, to how can I get more parent involvement in this garden program. We're available to you over the phone, over email, sometimes site visits given staff time, and we're really here to help you visualize and realize these projects and help them get started in the carrying out of them as well. And then lastly, we have our mini grants program, which is why you are perhaps watching this video, and I'll go into the nitty-gritty of that in a little bit. But the mini grant is offered in the fall and in the spring, and they are between $500 and $2,000 to start or expand a garden project at your school. So the first step to working with Grow to Learn is that you register your school garden with us. And what that means is before you come to us, or maybe in the midst of hearing about us and coming to us, you're really building a community of support at your school. So yeah, you need to find people who want to work on this project with you, want to spend time on it, want to create a vision for this project, have resources to donate or time to donate to this project. You really need to find your garden friends within your school community, within the parent community, within the community around your school and your neighborhood. Connect to different partners citywide, on a local level, whatever it may be. Find people who want to realize this project with you, and get them together to start to think about what the vision is for this type of program. And hopefully that vision will inform the design for the garden. And what that means is really asking those important who, what, where, when, why, how questions with this garden committee. Who's using this garden? How often are they using it? What classes are going to be out there in the garden? Who's going to maintain it? Who's going to maintain it over summer break? What are you growing? How does that connect to academic subjects? How are you opening this up to volunteers or the parent community? Really start to talk about the nitty-gritty of these types of projects, and let that inform the design and the mapping out of your space. And I'll go into that design and mapping piece in the next few slides. But once you have that, once you've met, once you have those things confirmed, that's when you can come to Grow to Learn. We've got an online form for you to fill out. That's the registration process. Our registration process asks those kind of key questions: who's going to be out there, how many students are using the garden, stuff like that. So use that vision, use that design to answer those questions, and then we ask you to upload some key documents for us as well. So this is what the online form looks like. You can access it from our website. It's at www.growtolearn.org. And at the very top it says register a school garden. It'll bounce you to this page. And if you are a new garden, you'll click the button below that says register, and that'll help you get started on the registration process. If you're bounced back to this page and it says so-and-so has already registered this school garden, that means that sometime since 2011 someone has registered your garden or your school site with Grow to Learn. That teacher, that parent might have left the school and the school garden may have fallen to the wayside. So just email us or call us and we can send you your school's password, add you in as a contact, and that way you can log in and update your registration this way. One process that we have instituted since 2015 is that all registered schools need to re-register once a year so that we know that your space is still active and still actively being gardened. And what that means is that once a year you log back into your school's registration, you add a new registration file that will autofill with all the information that you've previously entered, and if everything is still accurate, everything's correct, no big changes have been made, you can just submit that form and you are re-registered and are now eligible to again receive all the free materials that we give away. If something has changed, if you have a new principal, if a new science teacher has come on to your garden committee, make those changes in your registration form, make sure everything is accurate, contact information is accurate, and again you can submit that. You are re-registered and again eligible for the resources that we provide. So after you're filling out the registration form, there's two places where we ask you to upload a document into your registration form. The first piece of information we want to see is a signed letter of support from your principal. That letter should be on school letterhead and signed by hand by your principal. The body of the letter is really up to you. It can be as long and complicated or short and sweet as you like. We've got templates on our website for you, and you can copy and paste that onto your letterhead if you like. But really, we just want to see that you've had a conversation with your principal and your administration, and that they know that this project is underway. They know that there might be a delivery of bulk soil headed for their school one morning, and you're gonna be dropping soil down the hall to get it to your garden space. We just want to make sure everyone is aware that this project is happening. But this is also a way for you to have a conversation, a real authentic conversation with your principal and your administration about this type of project, asking for support for this type of project, asking for time for this type of project, because it takes a lot of time and energy, and having that administrative support and understanding when you might need to use PD time to water or plan a garden lesson. It's really important to have that administrative support. So use this as a tool, have those conversations, and upload that letter into your registration. The second piece of information that we like to see is a map of your existing garden space or planned garden space, and it should definitely be tied to your vision that you've planned out with your garden committee. we like to see some key pieces of information in the garden map. These are important for us, but also important for you. Some important factors in the map are the cardinal directions, so where your garden is in relation to your school building, in relation to permanent fixtures like trees or air conditioning vents or gates or something like that, because that determines the access for your garden, so who can go in and out, how often it is accessible, and also it will determine what you can and can't grow in this garden space. South-facing gardens and southeast or east-facing gardens usually get the most amount of sunlight, most hours of daylight during peak season, and those gardens can grow pretty much anything: tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, those sun-loving plants, and that's what a lot of people focus on when they focus on gardening, because those are very exciting. But what is often the case with school gardens is that you don't have a choice to where that open green space is in relation to your school building or on your school property. And a lot of gardens are on the north side of a building or on the west side or even indoors or on a rooftop. And growing is still possible. You're still able to have a really beautiful and educational garden. But that just determines what you are able to grow and your crop plan for that garden space. So really take a look at your garden spaces, detail where that garden space is, how much sunlight it's getting, because that will determine the plants that you need or the plants that you are going to be growing in that space. Water access is hugely important if you are a school gardener. Hopefully you have a spigot or some type of water access point in your garden space, but again, more often than not, you don't really have a choice of where that water access is, and it might be a hose run from a custodian closet somewhere inside the building. It might be a fire hydrant off the street. You might be lugging buckets of water from inside your classroom out to the garden space, and all that is fine. We are not here to dictate what you can and can't do in terms of water or watering your garden, but that's really helpful for you and your garden committee to know what that water access looks like, because it affects your maintenance plan for the garden. If water isn't readily accessible in your garden, you need to add on those couple of minutes where you have to run a hose through a closet or drag out those buckets of water or open up that fire hydrant. And you should put that into your maintenance plan. So when you have volunteers in your garden or when you have parents taking care of the garden over the summer, they know what to expect and they know what's expected of them. If you don't have water access in your garden and you do have a fire hydrant nearby and are looking to gain access to that fire hydrant, definitely contact Grow to Learn, and we can put you in touch with Green Thumb and help you get a hydrant key for that water, for that hydrant, so you can access water that way. And then some other key pieces of information in your garden map are the dimensions of the space. How big is your garden space as a whole? How big are your growing spaces going to be, if it's raised beds or containers or a hydroponic system, even in the classroom? Detailing the dimensions of the growing space versus the classroom space is hugely important. You definitely want to keep enough room around those growing spaces so that you can bring a classroom around, or you can bring a couple of kids around so that they can see what's actually growing, what's actually going on in the garden. I think it's really important to remember that these spaces are educational spaces first and foremost, so you need to think about the people in your space as well as the plants that are going to be in your space, because that's the whole point. And then again, putting in the permanent structures that might exist in your garden. So if you've got trees, if you've got benches in there, if you've got a flagpole or desks, if you're doing this in your classroom, those are all obstacles that you're going to have to grow around. and that could also affect sunlight or growing, other types of growing issues and growing spaces in that garden. So definitely put those things in there as well. And then the last piece of information, which is more important for Grow to Learn, are the cross streets, or where this garden is located. Because we do a lot of big bulk deliveries, and we want to know where to deliver those pieces of lumber and bags of soil for you. So definitely put those cross streets in there. Detail where the access to the garden is, so that we know when we come to deliver those things to you. Garden grants, yay! Okay, now we get to talk about the fun stuff, the garden grants. That's perhaps why you are watching this video. So Grow to Learn garden grants, our mini grant program happens twice a year, once in the fall and once in the spring. Schools can apply for between $500 and $2,000. We will support any type of garden. It can be outdoor, it can be indoor, it can be on your roof. It can be a couple of window boxes on a sunny windowsill in your science classroom. But we always say if it's a garden space used for student learning, we're happy to support it. Our garden grants can fund a one-time consultant. So if you have a complicated construction project that you need a licensed carpenter to help you with, or if you have someone working on a pollinator curriculum to really connect your garden to a classroom, we can help fund that cost, but you can only use that consultant line item one time. So if you use it this year and you want to again fund a carpenter for the following year, you cannot use our garden grant for that piece. Our grants can only be made out to the school itself or the PTA. We really want to see that these projects are coming from the school itself and have that school community support there. That's not to say that you shouldn't be working with outside organizations or partnering up with different local and citywide organizations. We think that's hugely important, and that creates really sustainable systems, and tapping into that network of partners that are available to you in this city is huge and really important. But we cannot fund those outside organizations. We can only fund your school or your PTA. So when you are writing this grant, definitely make sure that it's the school voice that's coming through. If and when you get the garden grant, you will report on that grant 2 times throughout that first year. The first time is a 6-month report, more of a check-in to see how things are going and to head off any challenges before they become insurmountable. And then the second time is at that 1-year mark of funding, and you will fill out a self-assessment about that year of funding, about your garden project, and then schedule a garden integration visit, which is like a strategic planning visit with GTL staff. And that's really a reflection on what's happened this year, the successes, the challenges, and to determine where you're going from there, where you're going after that first year of funding. Things that we cannot fund are field trips, staff time, food, and over $100 worth of classroom materials. If you want to buy markers or a blackboard or notebooks for garden journaling, that's fine. Put that in your budget. You just need to keep those expenses to $100 and under. Expansion garden grants. So if you are a school, you can apply for funding from Grow to Learn once a year. we support new gardens starting out, and we also support returning schools who are expanding their garden program in one way. You can apply for a grant for a physical garden expansion. If you want to add more beds to include more classes in your garden, that's great. It can also be a more programmatic element. So if you want to add compost, if you want to add chickens, if you want to add a rainwater harvesting system, a classroom area, if you want to add a pollinator piece to your edible garden, those are all really great expansion projects for returning schools. But we do look a little bit more closely at our returning schools. You know, we know you've been around for at least a year. We know that you can access Grow to Learn and other citywide organizations for free materials when you can. So we really look for those network connections and that longer-term sustainability plan, that you are accessing the things that you can get for free and applying for funding for something a little bit bigger and a little bit more complicated. This is a new program, about 2 years old, that we've been doing in partnership with IOBI. IOBI stands for In Our Backyards. They're an online crowdfunding platform. And Grow to Learn has been partnering with them to act as a match funder for some crowdfunding campaigns for our schools. This opportunity is for expansion projects only. They're for returning schools. And it's an opportunity for some of our veteran schools to earn some of that grant money on their own, do a little bit of fundraising within their community and beyond. But it's also an opportunity to apply for more funding, fund different types of projects that Grow to Learn can't necessarily fund. So the way this works is that returning schools would apply for a Grow to Learn grant. When this program is active, you would see a little question that says, do you want to participate in this IOBI crowdfunding match program? You would click yes. Grow to Learn would decide which schools qualify. And basically, you would work with IOBI. They've got staff to work one-on-one with schools to create a crowdfunding platform or a crowdfunding campaign that would exist on their website. And then that campaign would be active. You'd be soliciting funds from the community in your school. Since it's online, it's pretty accessible beyond your school community. You could access funds from all across the world. And Grow to Learn's role in that is that we act as a match funder. So we will match your donations dollar for dollar up to $2,000 or whatever your grant project was that you applied for funding for. So if someone donated $5, you would get $10 up until that $2,000 mark. The benefits for this type of program is that the funds that you raise through the IOBI campaign are unrestricted. They don't have the same limitations that Grow to Learn funding has. So you could use this money to pay for a part-time staff member to care for your garden. You could use it for student stipends. You could use it for field trips. You could use it for whatever you want. And then the other benefit is that you could potentially get $4,000 in funding, not just the $2,000 that Grow to Learn grant is for. And if you wanted to, if your campaign was really successful, you could keep that campaign going past $2,000 and raise as much money as you want. Grow to Learn can only double that money up until $2,000, so that's the one thing to keep in mind. Here's an example of a past funded school who did the crowdfunding campaign. This is what their page on IOBI's website looked like. They've got their little fundraising goal tool on the side. And again, IOBI has a lot of online resources to create really successful campaigns. They also have staff members on hand to work with you personally and one-on-one to develop really high quality and successful crowdfunding campaigns. You can learn more on IOB's website. Grow to Learn has a special page on their website. The FAQ section is really thorough and can answer a lot of your questions. You can look at past funded projects on their website as well. And again, definitely check out their website or sign up for their newsletter. They do workshops and webinars on crowdfunding and creating successful campaigns all the time. Grow to Learn will probably do workshops in conjunction with IOB during these grant campaigns as well. Questions? Email us. So what makes a strong mini grant application? That's the whole point of this workshop. So let's get into that a little bit. I think first and foremost, having a shared garden vision, whether it's as high and lofty as unifying all schools within your building or generating respect in the garden, you know, that can be your shared garden vision, but it can also be as short-term and as focused as composting. We want to add a composting system in our garden. You know, that garden vision is really up to you, but making sure that it's shared amongst many different garden committee members, that it's really coming from a team, and that it's shared amongst that team, and different members of your garden committee are contributing in different ways to that garden vision. That really proves to us that you've spent time together talking about this project, going over the details, going over the timeline, and going over the steps it takes to carry out these projects. You know, let that show through in your garden application. That really makes an impression on us. Again, include many voices. I think having a diverse group of people working on this project is really helpful. You know, different people have different expertise, they have different experiences, they have different resources at home that they can lend to these projects. They have different pockets of time that are available to devote to these projects, which is really important when you need someone to water over school break, or you need someone to water during class time. You know, definitely including many different people on this project will be ultimately beneficial for you and for the garden project in the long run. Here's an example of a school in the Bronx. These are some pictures of their garden. And then in the upper right corner is their vision. That's their shared vision for this garden. And we can see some examples of how the implementation and the garden design really reflect the purpose of this project, or the garden vision that was shared within that garden committee. So, you know, they wanted the garden to be accessible to everyone in the school. They wanted it to be eco-friendly and well-maintained. And we can see this garden is right up in the front of the school. It's right up at that front fence. We can see the shadow of it in those pictures. So this is the first thing that you see when you walk into the school. The gate at the far right corner is open during school hours. You know, folks can come in, sit on those really colorful benches, wait for their kids before school lets out. And yeah, that seems pretty tied to the vision. An inviting meeting place that fosters learning in the community. Having this type of space with those really colorful garden benches, that looks really inviting. Having the gate open during school hours, that's pretty inviting. So they really, you know, they thought about this garden vision and kept that in mind as they were building out this space and as they were making decisions in the physical space itself. So yeah, to wrap up, all of these are ones. Maybe maybe that means they are all equally important, which they are. But again, having a shared garden vision, including many different voices in your garden vision, you know, that's really to help you make sure these projects don't just fall on one person's shoulders. Make sure they're shared amongst different people, that they're sustainable in the long run. Being really detailed in your garden application, go through the where, the what, the who, the how, the when. No detail is too small. You know, pretend like you are talking about this garden project and you are talking about your garden to a complete stranger, and you want to make sure that they totally understand the project that you're setting out to fund. So being really detailed in all of these different questions is hugely important. And again, create a responsive design. You want to make sure that your design of the project directly matches the vision that you have for this garden project. If you want a garden accessible to everyone and it's a fixture in the community, you might not be able to house that garden on the rooftop where it's only accessible during school hours with school staff. So definitely pay attention to your vision, make sure that vision corresponds to the design. And don't be afraid to start small, build out once you become really successful or once you learn the ropes of these types of projects. I think these projects are really, really exciting and they're so important. But it's really easy to bite off more than you can chew and to get overwhelmed and feel like you are failing. So don't do that to yourself. Start small, start manageable, be realistic about the time and the energy that you can devote to these projects, and start there. Become amazing at that one thing, and then you can always build out, you can always expand, you can always come back to Grow to Learn for funding and pick up more seeds. I think schools that take a scaffolded approach and build out year to year to year, those are the schools that are still gardening to this day. Questions? All right. Now we're going to take a virtual garden walkabout. We're going to go through some pictures of garden spaces from actual Grow to Learn schools. And if there's anything that you notice during this virtual tour, if there are things that you want to learn more about, if there's things that you think could work for your school and you want to know how they did it, give us a call, email us, let us know what you're curious about, and we can help connect you or provide a little bit more guidance for those different pictures. So let's go. When we think of school gardens, I think most people think about raised beds. That's kind of like the traditional urban gardening method that a lot of people use. I think raised beds are really important for gardeners in general, especially urban gardeners, for a number of different reasons. The first being that soil in a lot of urban areas, New York City especially, our soil is toxic. New York City is a post-industrial city. There's been years and years and years of development, and with that development comes construction and chemical runoff from those different projects that make their way into the soil. So we definitely don't recommend growing in ground, especially if you're working with smaller kids. Even if you're growing perennials or flowers or trees and shrubs, even kicking up that dirt and breathing it in and getting it in your fingernails and on your shoes, that can cause some issues if not dealt with appropriately. So definitely growing in some type of container, be it raised beds or plastic bottles or something like that, and bringing in clean soil that you know is clean, is healthy, and creating a barrier between that and the soil in the ground is really important. especially when you are gardening with students, with young students as well. The second reason why we really love raised beds is that they are totally customizable to whatever space you have. They can be traditional raised bed boxes, squares, rectangles, triangles, tiers, L shape, extra long, extra narrow. You know, it's really up to you. It's up to the space that you have. It's up to the population of students that you're growing with. If you have smaller students, you might consider creating narrower beds so that they can reach and maintain those garden beds properly. If you are gardening with a student population who are in wheelchairs, you might consider creating tabletop planters that are a little bit more raised up off the ground and are accessible to folks in wheelchairs. You know, it's really up to you. And again, we provide a lot of lumber that you can use to create these garden beds. We do a lot of workshops on creating garden beds. We have training videos, we have toolkits. If you're looking to start out, I think this is a really good place to start. Some other things to note, and I would definitely recommend checking out those raised bed toolkits and videos, because those go into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty. But when you are building raised beds, make sure that your lumber is untreated lumber. Oftentimes treated lumber has toxic chemicals that will leach into your clean soil that you spent so long getting into your garden and paid a lot of money for. So you want to make sure that soil stays nice and healthy and clean. So use untreated lumber. These look like raised beds, the garden beds pictured here, but they are so much more. These are sub-irrigated raised beds, or SIFs for short. Sub-irrigation is a concept, and it can exist in many different areas. They can be in raised beds, they can be in soda bottles, they can be in 5-gallon buckets. It's really, you know, it's a concept and you can adapt it in whichever way you want or need. But the way that it works is that you are building in a water reservoir into the bottom of your raised bed, and then watering basically through a fill tube that goes all the way to the bottom of the reservoir. So you're not top watering, you're not getting water all over your foliage, you're really watering from the bottom up. The benefits of this is that plants are a little bit healthier. They're only taking up as much water as they need, so there's no real risk of overwatering your plants or drowning your plants. And since you're watering from the bottom up, you're not getting so much water on the foliage of the plants and creating these kind of tropical, humid microclimates. A lot of funguses and pests thrive in humid climates, so keeping your foliage and keeping your plants as dry as possible means that your plants will be as healthy as possible. The other really big benefit of sub-irrigated planters is that there's no water loss to evaporation. Since you're watering, again, you've got the water reservoir at the bottom, and plants are only taking up as much water as they need. So there's no water loss to evaporation, which means that plants stay moister longer, which means less maintenance time for you, busy teacher. So I think that sub-irrigation, if you have the opportunity to install it in your garden bed, it means a heck of a lot easier time maintaining your garden in the long run. And again, we have toolkits on sub-irrigation. We've got raised beds, SIP toolkits. We've got 5-gallon bucket toolkits, soda bottle toolkits. So definitely check out our website's resource section for more information. A lot of times schools don't have a whole lot of outdoor space to build out gardens, so they resort to growing up. Vertical gardens, chain link fence gardens, pallet gardens, trellising. All of these are really great tools to use when your outdoor space or your horizontal space is limited. And these are great grant projects. They, creating a living wall on your fence is use that space that's not being used and beautify it and make it productive. We're always really supportive of that. The one thing to keep in mind with these, a lot of these vertical gardening systems is that they tend to dry out a little bit quicker than in-ground systems, since their roots in the soil they're more exposed to the air and to wind. So you just will have to be a little bit more on top of watering that garden, or install a drip irrigation system on a timer to make sure those plants don't dry out and don't die. If you have no outdoor space at all, or you're just interested in more high-tech and soilless growing systems, this is a hydroponic system in a science classroom. Hydroponics is a soil-less growing system, so instead of plants taking up nutrients from the soil directly, you're feeding those nutrients by way of a solution. So plant roots are exposed to a nutrient-rich water solution that circulates through these systems. And these are great. You can do it yourself and create your own hydroponic system. There's a lot of different toolkits out there online. And then there's a lot of different citywide partners that can help you install some of these systems in your classroom. The amount of produce that you produce with hydroponic systems are incredible. So, if you're really focused on providing fresh food to your school community, and that's a goal and that's a mission for your garden, this might be the way to do it. Yeah, they're really cool. It's really nice to have something indoors when so much of the Northeast growing season is during summertime when school's out of session, so this can kind of help boost your garden program when you're stuck indoors during the winter time. And again, if you just have a sunny window, there's a lot of growing that you can do by way of window boxes with grow lights, some kind of high-tech water pump filtration system with these water bottles. All that is possible for you. And if a sunny window and a grow light is all you have, there's a lot that you can do in terms of growing there as well. So yeah, I think with these projects, we often talk about school garden projects as cyclical. There are highs, and then there's teacher turnover and parents graduating, and sometimes gardens are really thriving, and then sometimes they drop off a little bit, or your school goes under construction and you have to put that project on hiatus a little bit. You might feel like you're a total newbie in this and you've killed all your houseplants and you don't know which way to go. You might not have all of the resources to build out these projects. You don't know where to turn. And that's fine. I think these are all really common challenges that affect every school gardener that we've seen and that we've worked with. And it's just a matter of being really organized, understanding that this is par for the course, and again, starting small and focusing on some things that you can do right now, and worrying about those larger things worrying about those larger challenges later on, tackling them as they come up, and being really prepared for these different challenges that come up, because they will come up. But if you've got a dedicated team of people working with you, and you're in contact with Grow to Learn and different organizations that are here to support you and to help you realize these goals, I think you'll be fine. Like I said before, there's tons and tons of organizations in the city that are working to help to realize these projects and to help sustain them in the long run. It's always really amazing to us that in such an urban area as New York City, there are so many greening organizations that are really there to help promote these green spaces in New York City, because they're rare and they're important, and they're really important to people and to communities. So they want to see them succeed. So these are some organizations that you can get in touch with for different materials that they provide. You can also just get in touch with Grow to Learn and say, I'm interested in getting free daffodil bulbs, and we'll connect you to the New York Earth for Parks people and help you get that started too. And again, there's tons and tons of places that you can access for technical support or garden learning a new skill, curriculum connections. Edible Schoolyard is amazing. They do a ton of workshops and have a curriculum online that you can download. They've got 2 incredible demo garden spaces in Brooklyn and Manhattan that you can visit and get some inspiration from. If you have a botanic garden in your borough, they also do tons of adult education. They have children's gardens. They do professional development for teachers. Definitely access those places and learn what you can from experts in the field. Green Thumb, they do, if you are curious about any A to Z garden topic, guaranteed they've got a workshop that will answer those questions. And again, if you want to get in touch with a community garden nearby and create some type of partnership, they can help you with that as well. We really love New York Agriculture in the Classroom. They're kind of the New York statewide Grow to Learn, and they have grants themselves. They do a whole lot of really fun classroom contests and projects that you can do with your own classroom and be part of a statewide network of school gardens. And they also have an amazing curricula matrix on their website that you can search through by lesson topic, by grade level. It's a really amazing tool and resource, so definitely check that out too. And again, this is us, growtolearn.org. You can email us at growtolearn@grownyc.org as well. We're here for you if you have any questions about the grant or about gardening in general. Check out our website, learn what you can, and get in touch with us with any further questions. And good luck!